Let's have a middle class debate. How does Kamala Harris's proposed tax plan or Donald Trump's proposed tax plan affect the middle class and business owners? Hello, everybody. Welcome to My Favorite CPA, the best place on the internet for anything small business tax. Today, let's break down some of the most important issues that can affect your life and your future and my future and all of us, all of our futures. And that is taxation. With the 2024 election right around the corner, we need to take a look at the proposals of Kamala and President Trump just to make a comparison and see what would be good for you. Specifically, if you are in business or self-employed or in the middle class, I want to talk about this affects us. Both candidates are making promises to boost the economy, but their approaches are very different, especially because taxes is a huge driver. Let's break this down. Now, Harris has been very vocal about her goal to raise a more equitable economy, focusing on lifting up the middle class while ensuring that the wealthiest of Americans pay their fair share. Here are some of the key points of her plan. Number one, she wants progressive taxation. Harris supports a more progressive tax system, meaning that the more money you make, the more taxes you'll pay. She's proposing higher taxes on individuals earning over $400,000 and definitely hitting corporations that have big profits. And when we say corporations, she means big corporations. Or does she? When you're in business, you can have a year where you lose $100,000, $200,000. Maybe you have a year or two of that, and then you have a year that's really good, and you make that back, plus you make enough to live on and make it worth your while. So maybe you have a year that shows up at $500,000. Wham! You're gonna get just killed under this tax plan. That's my concern anyhow. Now there's also, number two, tax credits for families. One of the central features of Harris's tax plan is her expansion of the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit. She would like these tax credits to be entirely refundable, which means hopefully more money in the pockets of middle and low income families who can use the money to help with their families. Number three, we have affordable housing. Harris also plans to offer tax credits for renters and home buyers. These credits would be designed to make housing more affordable for middle-class Americans, particularly in high-cost areas where housing is a major financial burden. Number five, we have green energy incentives. To address climate change concerns, Harris's tax plan includes various incentives for individuals and families to adopt cleaner energy practices. For example, middle-class homeowners might get tax credits for installing solar panels or buying electric vehicles, which in theory would reduce reliance on energy. So to sum it up, Kamala Harris's tax plan is principally geared towards helping working class families and supporting home ownership and promoting economic fairness by increasing taxes on the wealthy. But what does that mean for middle class Americans? Now let's go over President Donald Trump's tax plan. Trump's approach is very different than Harris. He's focusing on tax cuts and reducing tax burden across the board. The number one part of his tax plan is lowering tax rates for all people. Trump wants to extend and expand the tax cuts that he introduced during his presidency. His plan includes reducing income tax for middle-income families, and he claims this will help stimulate economic growth by leaving more money in taxpayer pockets. And let us not forget that included in Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is the QBID, the Qualified Business Income Deduction. And this is monumentally important for small business and self-employed people because it does represent a layer of tax-free income just for being in business. Basically, 20% of your profits become tax-free to you under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. This Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to naturally expire, and for sure, if Kamala Harris is elected, they want to see it go bye-bye. This qualified business income deduction, it does not help billionaires. It helps you, it helps me, it helps anybody that's a small business or that's self-employed. It's monumental, and I can't emphasize this enough because you're not seeing it anywhere else. Number two, we have corporate tax cuts. Trump does plan to continue reducing corporate tax rates, which arguably is for big companies, but Let's think about who the owners of big companies are. It's often retirement plans like your 401k, my 401k, grandpa's 401k, dad's 401k, or whatever version of retirement plan that you may have. It's often going to be invested in the stock market. So lower taxes should mean more profit, which means growth in your retirement plan portfolio. Now, number 3, we have tax relief for families. Trump has expressed his support for expanding deductions for childcare and education expenses, which arguably would help middle-class families manage these rising costs. Number 4, Trump also wants to permanently eliminate the death tax, often known as the estate tax. While some people would say this mainly benefits wealthy families, Trump argues that eliminating it will ultimately help small business and family farms. Maybe they could stay intact for generations instead of having to sell it to pay the death tax, which does happen. So in short, Trump's tax plan is built around the idea that tax cuts lead to economic growth, benefiting all Americans. Will these tax cuts provide enough relief for the middle class? As a practicing CPA with my focus on small business, family-owned business, and self-employed people, I see a lot of people on all spectrums, from lower income to middle income to arguably higher income. I personally feel like these people should not be punished, but with Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring, if Kamala Harris is elected, there is no benefit for small business. In fact, quite the opposite. She has the small business tax benefit that she's pitching, but note, it's only for new businesses. So people like you that have been working, doing what you're doing a few years, and people like me, there's no help in an already rough economy. And under the Tax and Cuts Jobs Act, it has pushed tax rates down. So once that it naturally expires, or if it's killed off, tax rates are going to pop back up, and all of a sudden we have economic problems, folks. That's what we're going to have. I'm very worried about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expiring with no help for family-owned business. All the rest of this stuff is great. Free cars and free homes and free benefits and all that stuff. It's great. But I personally feel like small business is where it's at for this country. And if you're an employee, maybe you can't relate if you just get a W-2, but put yourself in the shoes of if you ever started a small business. Think about what you read and what you've heard. It's not uncommon to lose money for a year and lose money for another year. And then you start to grow and take off. And then maybe you have a really good year that's paying back the loss from year 1, 2, and 3, or whatever it is. And then you get hammered on taxes. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's not fun. But what do you think? Will Kamala Harris's approach to boosting the economy, will it pay off? Drop your thoughts and comments below. And do you think President Donald Trump's extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in making taxes lower for everybody would be good? Drop your thoughts and comments below. And as always, for tax news you can use, follow me.